Hello, everyone, to the second episode of the Blue Health Squad. And here we are today with Carsten, Andreas, and myself. We are the old bandicoots of digital health. Each of us has spent more than 2 or 3 decades in the industry, and we have questions and we have problems with some of the things that are happening, and we are here to vent about those things. So today, the topic will be introduced by Andreas, and you can listen in on the conversation that 3 friends are having. Go ahead, Andreas.
So, welcome everybody. Today, AI in healthcare. A very broad topic, a very hyped topic, and a topic which seems not to let us go. Yeah, and I don't want to say too much. Maybe we just start with the first question, and that if we hear all these news about development of health of AI, and 2025 will be the year where AI is taking over and so on. What do you think about that, Carsten?
I think it's not going to happen because of 2 reasons. The one reason is that the
Mr. Positive,
Mr. Positive is back. Exactly. No, let's be realistic. I think there will be some progress, certainly. I think from a technical point of view, AI can already create lots of benefits. We see that. We see AI outperforming the medical doctors. But I think the main hurdle will be the medical doctors and the system itself. They will not allow it. It will not allow that AI, in particular, really in diagnostics and eventually even treatment recommendation, will play a major role this year. The need is not big enough, and there is also regulatory hurdle, which are rightfully there in order to ensure that these kind of tools are not harming people. This is always priority number 1, that these tools are not harming people, and eventually we might need some checkpoints to ensure that. But we see clear studies that machine-driven decision making outperforms medical doctors, and the fun part is that if you combine the machine with the medical doctor, it really performs worse than the medical doctor, because logically the medical doctor is eventually not listening to the machine. So that's what the publications say, and to a certain extent it's logical. On the other hand side, in order to really sustainably make AI performing in particular the medical space, we need actually standardized and structured information, which does not exist today as such at scale, because there is no financial incentivization to do so, and in order also to support doctors that they don't basically, or that they are not overwhelmed in documentation and doing proper documentation, we also need, or we fundamentally need or require tools to take over that part that the doctor doesn't have more work to do to create this standardized and structured data, but that there is tools which help him and take over much of the burden, even burdens which they might have on an administrative level today. So, but I don't think this is going to happen within the next 12 months. I don't think that the problem is big enough that there will be like a push from a digital point of view, like as we saw it in the COVID times, where there was a big global pressure. That's from my side. The positive.
Now, Carsten, you were outlining two parts of the story. One is kind of the human factor. So in healthcare, doctors will still play a certain role and will play a role in implementing or establishing AI technology and so on. On the other hand, you outlined the technology piece of the story, or the technology stack of the story, on which AI needs as an infrastructure in order to evolve. Now, Sam, as you've been implementing digital infrastructure in healthcare for decades. How do you see these two things coming together?
When you say decades, you make me sound too old.
It's not centuries, it's only decades, man.
I think, the definition of being a human is changing a lot. Even when they started with the theory of what makes a computer, what was that scientist? Oh my God, I'm getting too old. The Turing test, right? About what will constitute intelligence. Also, at this stage, it has surpassed. But at the same time, there are major voices in AI which is saying the current level of AI is not even as smart as your house cat. And that is actually the title of the article there, that there are certain things in which AI really excel, and especially based on the current models of it mathematical prediction of probability of what the next word is going to be, and then whether it actually has the intelligence that is required to solve these kind of problems, right? Wherever there is math involved, it is really good at solving in certain areas. And then there are other areas that it may not be that great. So, but going back to your thing, are doctors replaceable? Not yet. That's how I will put it. We don't know, and there are people out there saying that the human factor cannot be eliminated at all. But I'm not necessarily in one of those categories. But at this stage in time, it is not. So on the other side, on the infrastructure side, let me start with what Carsten was saying. The regulatory hurdles are definitely there because the law is moving really, really slow. But on the other hand, people are using AI in diagnostics and other factors with the caveat and the legal disclaimer that this should not be used. It's kind of like the clinical decision rules or the clinical decision engines you had in EHR system before this, right? So that is still being used, but whether the results are going to be officially accepted, it's not there. The law is not there. So many of the diagnosis, for instance, reading of images, right, X-ray images and other things, it is already proven that AI is much more efficient than when a radiologist. But at the same time, you need a radiologist to sign off on those kind of things. So infrastructure, if you ask me, is catching up faster than the law side. On the human side, on the capability side, whether it is a fully rounded spectrum that you're looking at, I don't think we are yet there. And that's my stand on
I think
those
what
things.
you're picking on, Sam, like, I think we also really, if we want to be picky, so to say, we have to also distinguish between regulatory and law. Because a doctor signing off an AI engine having analyzed the X-ray or MRI images, which might have detected a tumor or something like that, this is a legal topic. It's about liability. Is the company liable which produced the software, or is the person liable which signs off? And at the moment, we're in a situation that the medical personnel is the last position where we have a legal sign off that whatever is found, and eventually it triggers a treatment or a surgery or whatever. The regulatory part, definitely. And this is, the question is it ever going to change? But you can also transfer this question into automotive. If a Tesla is driving all by itself, who is liable? Is it Tesla or is it the driver? Because the driver is still there. And at the moment, we don't have a legal situation, and eventually it might never change. But at one point in time, you have to ask the question, the decisions in the car, for example, they might have to happen so fast that even if you're sitting in the car and you might be able to interfere with the steering wheel, you're not capable, because it just happens so fast and the machine makes the decision so fast. And at the end of the day, and it's what Andreas said, and I think this is an excellent example in healthcare also, where we see machines outperforming humans in the component of making a diagnosis or making a decision on the treatment. This is today clearly written in books. It's decision trees, it's logical pathways, which a doctor knows by heart and combines with his or her private personal experience. So, and then then there's the question when you're asking the question, when you're saying or when we ask the question, might the human factor being removed ever? I don't know. Maybe not, but maybe the human factor is a different one in future. Because it might be that we say, okay, the decision tree is executed by the machine because it will be, and if the information available about the patient is rich enough, the decision will be taken by the machine. Eventually also even for financial purposes, because also it might be for maybe insurance packages or whatever might only allow a certain path. And then you can decide as a patient, okay, I want to pay extra and I want to have the better treatment, which might be an option and might have eventually from a statistic point of view a better outcome. So there the human factor or the human comes into place, but the role of the medical doctor might become a very different one in these cases. Or even if it's medical doctor, maybe it's different medical personnel. And there you can ask, and if this you can doubt, because there's also already studies where they have tested AI-driven chatbots interacting with patients, where even the empathetic part, because then now I'm talking more about not the technical part but the empathetic part, where the machine even outperforms the human there, because you can put psychological, so to say, tricks or standard communication in the bot and have a very decent conversation with the patient, which might be even superior compared to the one a medical doctor might, because eventually they might not be trained to have these kind of conversations with the patients.
And the AI agents are much
Absolutely.
more patient. They have unlimited patience.
Yeah,
patience
absolutely.
in dealing
and the
with
thing
patients.
is also, it might be. Imagine you have a cancer diagnosis and you're on the path of a treatment. It will turn in your head 24/7. You have an appointment with your doctor, maybe if you're lucky once in a week or maybe every 2 weeks. But with the bot, you can communicate 24/7, and you can raise your questions, you can raise your concerns, you can bring up your fear. And it's a complete different value proposition compared to a healthcare system what we have today. And the system today will never be able to offer this kind of service as we have it.
So what I'm hearing you saying is AI is a good solution for chronic patients, especially with these kind of patient support systems.
For any, it's not even chronic, for any type of patient. Like if I imagine when my kids were small, or even if I think about, like giving birth. The first kid, we ran multiple times at night to the hospital because we thought now it's time, or we called, or but you know how it was. Yeah, even in these situations, and then you have the kids and you think they're sick or they're very sick, and then you run to the doctor all the time. Is the question, is it needed, or is it just I need a conversation with the bot, and the bot tells me, look, about the vitals are like this, and the likelihood is like this, and whatever, you make some pictures, or eventually you upload some data from a smart device, and the machine will tell you, look, it's most likely it's all good, and you can go tomorrow, and most likely, in 4 hours when you had a good sleep, the kid had a good sleep, everything is over, and you don't have to go. You don't have to worry. And this is a level of service which a system cannot provide today, and you cannot provide this with humans.
Now, what you said, one of the things that you said resonated with me in that whether, I don't remember exactly what you said. It was about whether it can treat an entire patient's holistic health. I think I interpreted it that way. And I was kind of thinking that, AI kind of solutions can be helpful for specific conditions. Let me try to clarify that statement a little bit, right? Now, why is AI very efficient in analyzing X-ray image or a radiology image, right? It is given a specific set of parameters and doesn't have to think outside of it. which means it has all the data it needs to analyze that particular problem, which is basically the radiology stuff. And if there are conditions for a patient that are kind of like episodic kind of a treatment, which doesn't have to go outside its area of information, then it could be a little more effective. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Whereas again, it's kind of like going back to the value-based care model. I always talk about value-based care because that's one of the main things that our company does, right? So when you contract with an agency to provide a holistic care for a group of people, it is easier and less risky to say we are going to treat one condition, that is maybe knee surgeries, and knee surgeries alone, right? So they know what are all the variables that can come into it. They contract it for each knee surgery. I'll do it for X dollars. We'll treat the patients. It starts, it ends, it's over. But when you say, keep the health of the patient for the rest of your life, we'll give you X amount of dollars, then it is becoming very open-ended because we don't have enough information about all the things and permutations and combinations that can happen. And the same thing applies to the AI also, right? It has a lot of information to understand, analyze, and treat a patient in a general condition. Whereas if the AI is given a specific condition on which to treat the patient, it can be effective. Goes back to the example that you said where, you have a chronic condition, you can talk to the chatbot about it. It will give you everything about that chronic condition, and it can say one thing affects that. But if it is more generalized, AI may not be able to help that much. I mean, this is just reflection. It's not making any statement.
I think
I'm
we
just
have
throwing it
to.
out there.
The thing is, what you're talking about, from my understanding, is I think we can take even the X-ray example and why, or the MRI example. Why is the AI today so efficient or effective in detecting a malignant situation? Because it's a closed situation, and it's a closed situation which was trained on a data set or on a setting which has a start and an end. Because you have a suspicion, you take the X-ray, then the tumor, the suspicious material is removed, say it's a tumor, and then in pathology you get the confirmation what type of tumor it is, or that it was a tumor at all. So you have a closed loop which you can learn from. And you can train it over time, and you can optimize it. And then you do whatever train, and if you want to do it super, you can run that card as well. But let's stick with this card. And what you also have in that setting is, if you have in the radiology department, you have very structured and very standardized information. These systems are 20 years ahead of the rest of the healthcare IT infrastructure, I would claim. In the pathology, you're not as good, but they are also, I think, quite far in having standardized and structured information, because they need to write their standardized reports. You can map that. So you have a very good data set of standardized and structured information, which with a closed loop where you can continuously learn and you can improve. And you can transfer that to any other type of event what you have eventually. The moment you have this kind of setting, I agree with you, the thing will outperform anything else, because humans it's also the sheer, I think it's even the sheer number of information you have for training, because a medical doctor, even if it's the best one in the world, he will just have, or she will have, a certain number of patients which they are able to see per year, per time, they will remember, but a machine will never forget. And you can continuously improve and learn. But the moment you go into this setting where you say that we are talking about value-based and like making this claim, you will live healthy until the day before you die, the question is, what is going to cause your death? You might be hit by a car and you die in the street. That's it. So then your contract, what you have set up, is nonsense. Yeah,
The positive is back.
no, but it could also be that you're living in a very calm and super great, also psychologically safe environment, and you will become 100 years old. How are you able to consider this information in a value-based contract to service a larger population. Because this is,
Let me ask you a question in this. So this is when you were talking, my mind was racing on this, is that, do you think we are going to see an era where you are going to have separate AI frameworks that specialize in each area, right? Like you have drugs being developed for cancer or for something else or other thing. Like you have AI agents, let's call it that, right? For gynecology or for this specific cancer or this specific disease. So kind of like having drugs, specific drugs for specific diseases. You will have agents, AI for each of those situations. And we manage it kind of like how we are managing medicines even. We'll have to have some sort of an interaction where you have this drug to drug interaction and drug allergy interaction notifications coming in. Is that something that you're foreseeing? Or first of all, do you foresee that there will be this specialized AIs for each specific specialty that each doctor is practicing, and then having this kind of interaction?
Yeah,
Andreas, you have been very silent.
Yes,
Are we
yes,
that
definitely,
fascinating?
definitely. No, but it's interesting what you're saying. I mean, what you're basically asking is if we believe that AIs are being implemented or are evolving, respecting the specializations and structures which have been built in healthcare systems through the last decade and years, yeah? Or
Is it having it developed because those are efficient?
yeah, I mean, for me, there are two questions. One is, have they been developed because they are efficient, or have they been developed because it's more or less the only way you can do it with a human brain capacity? Even all these healthcare workers are heavy knowledge workers. Yeah. So this is the question. It's a little bit like digitizing or automating any process at the end of the day, or any system at the end of the day, where you need to ask yourself whether the analog way or the way it has been done before, now just automating it this way, whether this is the best way to do it or not. Yeah. But what went through my head through the discussions is we tend often, and also if you look at the literature and so on, or you see all these messages coming in that in 2025 there will be AGI and whatever. Yeah. And what I ask myself is, aren't there much more essential problems, be it in healthcare or in life, which could be solved through automation or digitalization or with an AI, which would add much more value to humanity, to the society, to economy, and they are just being ignored. They're just being, I make a drastic example and then I come back to the healthcare story. Yeah? I always have fights with my wife about what you eat.
You can't solve that, Andreas.
About vacuum cleaning the house. And I say, we have this bloody robot, we just need to run it. And she says, but this robot doesn't clean the edges and the corners and these elements at the side, at the walls and so on. And I started to research, and yes, there are some products with dedicated features to solve that problem. But if I look at them, we looked at several of them, none of them clean a house to the satisfaction of my wife. And I believe that many of you have made the same experience. Yeah. Now going back.
I'm not going to say anything. My wife might watch
Now
this.
going
She's
back
the best.
to healthcare, yeah, because for me, I if I take this vacuum cleaner, which are products basically built 100 years ago, more or less, with a design from 50 to 100 years ago, usability never has been challenged. Yeah. I tend to freak out using these products, but there is nobody is addressing this problem. Yeah, and I think with all this robotics, AI, whatever, that's a solvable problem. But obviously, nobody is allocating capital to solve that problem. Yeah. So coming back to healthcare, the question I have is, often we think about, are we replacing the doctor in differential diagnosis, or are we replacing care teams in taking care of patients and so on? And how can we build this AI which does this and that and whatever? But very simple things, they are not really addressed. I mean, there is one thing: doctors are spending tons of time and wasting tons of time filling in forms for special patient cases to be filed with, be it an insurance company or a payer organization or whatever. And every of these organizations has a different form, and they have this patient file, and somehow the information from the patient file needs to go into that form in order to get money at the end of the day. Huh? And filling these forms, actually a use case which with today's, especially with now the upcoming LLM, can be very well contained, encapsulated, being trained, being optimized, being perfectionized. And I rarely see kind of EMR system providers or hospital information system providers who have such features out of the box. One example, there are other examples probably in hospitals when it comes to the care team people allocation roster, yeah? Where there are different startups who are trying to do something in this, but somehow the overall capital to solve these problems end to end is not allocated in order to just get it done. Huh?
Can I? When you take a long pause, I thought you were done, and I started talking. I apologize for that. But here is the thing. So one of the low-hanging fruits that AI should help is with reducing the document fatigue of providers, which is one of the biggest turn-off of becoming a doctor. The daily writing of the reports or even entering stuff in the medical record system. So I think when I first started long ago, there was this medical transcription services. Doctors used to speak into their tape recorder, and then they send the digital files of the actual tapes to somebody to transcribe it and make it into a medical record and then send it back. And then it started later on to be transferred into the actual medical record where the doctor himself is sitting out there and entering, because the linguistic models of the natural language processing was not good enough. But at the same time, there were statistics which said that you meet a patient for 15 minutes, you enter data for 45 minutes, something like that. And that had led to the resignation of many of the older doctors. They said, screw it, I cannot do this. I'm just going to retire. I don't want to implement an EMR system. Now, that is the one area that we can really help. So in our company, blueBriX, what we are doing is we are embracing the LUI. So there was the GUI, graphic user interface. Now it's the linguistic user interface. So especially with regard to the patient portals or the patient-facing applications, it would be great if you can just pick up the phone and speak into the app and say, hey, I want to see what my latest test results are, what it implies for me, or any other things that you want to do. Or even if the doctor, he can have the headphones walking around or seeing the patient and say, I'm meeting with so-and-so patient and it's there and these are the conditions, and it just, automatically goes into the electronic health record system. And I'm also feeling that many of the GUIs for many data entry systems would be obsolete or will go away, which will be easy. Like I open the laptop or whatever application and I said, okay, today I want to enter the data about these kind of things. So I met with 10 people, I called this many people, so-and-so answered and blah, blah, blah. And it will automatically input the data into that thing. So that is one area it can really help, or where the doctor can come in and say, this is another thing that we are working on is, okay, this patient presents himself with this condition, the diagnosis is this thing, and we are recommending a standard treatment plan. And then the system will automatically populate that treatment plan and share it with the patient. And then you can automatically kind of change it on the third month. Instead of administrating this drug, I want to do this. So instead of sitting in front of it and typing all these things, it follows the doctor's brain waves or thoughts or speech into translating that into an EMR system. I think that is a very low-hanging fruit that you can do. So that is about capturing the data. Then the other part is about getting the data out and making it meaningful. That is also going to be really, really low-hanging. The other thing that, like you said, which is bereft with all kinds of legal, moral, ethical responsibility issue is making the AI do some decisions for the doctor or in absence of the doctor. And you put in, say, okay, these are the conditions or the symptoms, all these things. What do you think is the diagnosis, and come out with the best treatment options? And that is going to be a problem, right? Even if the computer is accurate, there is going to be a big chance of always having to verify it manually, right? And there are, I see this akin to the latest discovery of quantum computing. Or why go into quantum computing? Even with the AGI, when it first started, the biggest criticism is even the makers don't know how it is arriving at the conclusion of that thing, because there is so many layers and so many calculations that it baffles the human mind. And the same thing is with the quantum computer. Why I said that is because what other computer could take 1 billion years to calculate, it seems it can do it in 2 seconds or 3 seconds. I mean, I might be fudging the numbers a little bit, but I want you to understand the scale. So even clarifying the decision-making process or reverse engineering or validating a process that is being done by an AI is going to be very difficult. So then how do you trust it? So I think the trust will have to come based on the experience, right? So if it recommended 10 or 15 different things, then there is an experience. It's, again, I'm digressing a little bit, where Mr. Musk, our big Mr. Musk, he was saying the accident rate or the fire catching rate of a Tesla is substantially lower than gas-based engine. But the moment a Tesla does this, it becomes big news because it's a new technology or something to that effect. And that is something that we are going to face until it becomes very day-to-day thing for us. When everybody gets used to it.
No.
I think I ranted on a little bit.
I think it goes back a little bit into what Carsten said in the beginning. It goes back into this legal liability or risk allocation story. Yeah? If you have in healthcare, you mentioned there might be, or there are systems who are taking decisions for a doctor. Yeah. In order for such a system to take a decision with a certain accuracy, it needs a certain context of input. Yeah? And that context, usually in real life, is never complete. And that's a well-studied fact. You in life, you have to take decisions in absence of complete information. And now that the thing comes that if you take decisions in absence of complete information, and an AI will have to do this in the same way as a doctor will have to do this, you need to take risk. And by taking risk, you agree actually to take on certain aspects of liability or whatever. Yeah. And they might be defined in one way or the other. So the question is, and that's interesting, there is an interview on YouTube with philosopher Yuval Harari, where he talks about that if we look at our legal systems, actually a company is a legal person, or can be a legal person, is a legal person. And if an AI is a company, an AI becomes liable. So if we take these two things or these three things together, one is kind of risk allocation, one is capital allocation, and the other one is actually liability allocation. I think that's kind of a triangle which needs to be sorted out in any case when it comes to AI and automating things and so on. And that's the question with that Tesla, for the combustion engine. That problem has been sorted out for decades. There are reference cases. People know how to handle that problem if it happens. If there is a new technology upcoming, one has to figure out or to find out in what analogy, why, according to which values one is handling that problem. And now in the example of Elon Musk and his car, he says, what's the difference between this electric battery blowing up and a combustion engine blowing up? And the difference is probably to extinct that combustion engine fire, you need far less, and you have actually fire extinction infrastructure in place, while for this battery fire, it kind of a different problem for firefighters and so on, which hasn't been sorted out or not at the same level and the same coverage. And I think that's a little bit the story, that certain of these value schemes and the way how to handle certain events need to be sorted out. And I think we are now in the very complex side of the story again, but I think when it comes to AI in healthcare, that's going into the same direction, and sort of we won't be able to build kind of a new 100% perfectly designed system from scratch in which everything is working perfectly. I even don't know if we want.
But may I just add one component, because it's very interesting in the cars and also in healthcare. The thing is, we're always dealing with risks. There will be no risk-free situation. And the funny thing for AI, for me, it's always, we are always expecting the AI to be 100% perfect. This is not realistic. This is also not realistic in our healthcare world today. Take a simple drug. In the description and the documentation of the drug, all the side effects are described. And if I have a drug which heals 909 out of 1,000 people and one dies, we accept this today. Whatever is the reason of this death, it might be just a statistical reason because this person, fell in a certain group, or it was a causality due to the drug abuse or due to the drug itself because it created some non-viable side effect. But we accept this. And who reads the documentation to read the side effects today? We just accept it. The same thing with the car. If your steering fails in a classical car, in a standard car, everybody accepts that there was the mechanical issue. But if eventually the entire electronics shuts down in your electric car and the car just stops, you say, oh, it's a big deal. No, the question is just how do you deal with the situation, as you said, Andreas, with the extinction. If there's fire, today, the firefighters come, they can extinct it with some foam and with some water, and then it works. With the battery, it's a different thing. The same thing is if your car stops and everything shuts down, you better leave the car, because eventually another car might come which has no whatever detection system, and then will hit you. So it's like on a highway, everybody knows, or if on a highway, whatever type of car you have, your car stops because of whatever, you're running out of fuel, for example, because you forgot to refuel, or you thought, I'm going to make it to the next gas station, and you don't make it, and the car stops in the middle of the highway, you immediately leave the highway. If the electronics stops, you stay in the car and you wait until you're hit by something else. Are you kidding me? So it's like, I think it's a learning process. But just going back to and bringing the loop, because I think that's an interesting thing which you brought up before, Andreas, and I think it's eventually even related to that one. You were saying, like, we should not digitize the existing analog process. And it's also like we have an analog process, which is the mechanical car, and we have an electric car. They work completely different. They have thousands of sensors. They can predict where you drive to, and so on and so forth. And is this Elon Musk thought this through to an extent which is future. So these machines are able to do things which we cannot implement today. The car, technology-wise, is far ahead of the today's situation. And if you take this over to the healthcare system, eventually you could build systems which are able to be far beyond that what the medical system today is able to do. Just take the simple thing what I said before. We have these diagnostic tools. If you just take a particular use case, we have diagnostic tools. We have chatbots which then can do the empathetic part with the patient, because we also know today, independent of AI, that if you have a lot of empathy and if the patient is psychologically well, the outcome of the treatment will be always much better compared to another one. Dietary, you can include bots which help with the dietary. You can train. You have bots which know which is the best medication working under this particular condition, and so on and so forth. So technically, we could implement it tomorrow, even with imperfection, and the imperfection will be eventually even much better compared to that what we have today. Not saying that today is super bad, but it's the current situation. But the point is coming from the current situation to this futuristic thing, which is actually possible today. I think that's a process. It's an evolutionary process. And Sam, you were asking for, do you think there is individual AI agent dealing with particular use cases? I think yes, because it will be an evolutionary process. There will be individual cases. Take for example, the closed loop situation. And we're talking about a very simple situation. Like, let's take breast cancer as a very good example, because it's a very emotional situation for all parties involved. Yeah, but you have tried to do early detection with some mechanical testing today. Yeah, then you're lucky enough, you find some knot or whatever. You go and you do an X-ray. The X-ray is analyzed by some software. The software is well trained on the outcome of the pathology. And then you have, for example, let's take the HER2 positive tumor. You have also a very good path where you know which kind of drugs are working best, and so on and so forth. So you have a end-to-end journey to eventually even a curation situation. But you can today, instead of having the mechanical part, there is bras which have thermal sensors inside, which continues. You don't have to go to the medical doctor as a woman every half year, every year, depending on your risk or whatever. You can just wear the bra. You can buy them. And depending on the risk from your family or from your genetics in general or whatever, you don't have to do a mastectomy like some celebrities did. I don't put names now on the table, but I think we all know. Which caused a massive, stupid impact in the population of women, because lots of them did, because of fear, execute or enforcing mastectomy just as a preventive measure, which is to a certain extent doubtable. But you can bring it to a complete different level. But if you have, say, for example, the bra situation, which exists today, you have a continuous measurement over time with standardized and structured data. And then you can, the rest of the process can then, over time, even though it's maybe at the moment individual AI agents which take care of diagnosis, treatment, well-being, psychology, and so on and so forth, over time, they are modules with, I call them now modules, with specific interfaces where you can close a learning loop. But this is an evolutionary process.
So earlier I said about individual specialization, but I caught on to what Andreas said and you repeated, do not digitize analog processes, right? So that thought, now I'm trying to take back that proposition where I said, should we have a specialized AI for each specialization? Instead, what I'm thinking is, I think we will end up with a specialized AI for each individual. That it's kind of like a digital twin, but that particular AI model can be trained on the entire health history of one particular patient or me. And it will be with me from birth to death. It can be fed all the information, and that can give you a better diagnosis, better interaction with the AIs that work in the healthcare system. And it can, I think that would probably be the ultimate outcome, and also probably the democratization of AI in and of itself. Like we all have our own cars, right? Each one of us has our own cars, and we will get, and it could be part of our, so if each one of us are going to get a robo, like Musk is saying, a household helper, it might even contain our digital healthcare AI embedded within it, so it can give us treatment and other things. Maybe that is the future that we are looking at, right? Imagine if that is the situation. See, the entire population of the world is going into old age, geriatrics, right? So the human population is going to be a substantial percentage of elder people by the next 100 years or so, right? Where it is going. And the supply of healthcare providers have been dwindling, and it is limited even now. And even those people are not willing to go to rural areas or remote areas and work. And all this could be, I'm trying to end today in a positive, because we only have 5 or 6 minutes, in a very positive kind of vision here. And probably that is where we are ending at. Each of us have our own AI, which has a complete knowledge of our health history, because at the end of the day, that is what matters. That coupled with the entire healthcare knowledge of the world. Imagine, like Steve Jobs said, right? Your entire songs in your pocket. We are talking about your
Steve
entire
Jobs,
doctor in your pocket, and you can walk around with that.
That was also one of the idea, to have your health information all the time with you. I'm absolutely with you with the democratization, but the point is, it cannot learn from yourself. It can learn from the population, because you have to train it from all. And then because it cannot, it cannot foresee my future. It's like going back to my negative point. It will not know that I'm going to be hit by a car tomorrow. And then the question is, it's also a fundamental question. Is this a part of your health? Because eventually I'm always crossing a road with a pedestrian which has heavy traffic, where there's lots of, from a statistical point of view, there's lots of accidents with people, because the electric cars which are driving there are all cheap ass ones and don't have proper human protection features implemented. Yeah. So the question is, like, where does your health end and where does it start? And we're always thinking about health today, and this is just opening that point for eventually a next discussion. I'm very positive about it. But our health is not that what we have as a sick care system today. This is sickness. Our health is, lucky us, about 99% of our time, we're sitting like the three of us, maybe having some illnesses, maybe having some pains, maybe having a cold, but we are healthy. So the good thing to me is that the healthy state is the majority of our time, and the sick state, what we are actually talking about today, it was not the health state, it was the sick state of the human being. That's, lucky us, the minority, and eventually it will increase the older we get. but that's normal.
In the interest of time, Andreas, you can state your thoughts, and then probably we'll talk about AI in drug discovery, because you guys are from pharma and I don't want to waste your collective experience. Or another topic, I'm just throwing it out there because there is a whole bunch of things that whenever anybody talks about AI, they're talking about, oh, that's going to help pharma companies in drug discovery. I don't know what the hell they're talking about because I have no connection with pharma. You do. Probably you can come back with some information. But having said that, why don't you close it up with your thoughts, and then
I think we touched a lot of topics, and I think there is maybe not wrapping up, but placing a little message as a thought or food for thought. Yeah. We are talking nowadays a lot about AI, and everything is AI, and there are these bots. And I never interacted with a chatbot who, at the end of the day, solved my problem seriously. But still, we believe this is the big thing, and so on. What I would like to state at the very end, and I think that's maybe something we need to learn as people in healthcare, in other industries, in whatever. Yeah. If we want to solve the problems of today and the problems humanity has, or we have as a society or as individuals, yeah, we need to think about, and I'm a little bit with what you said before. We need to think about how we can implement certain tools, certain technologies, whatever, to the benefit of people. Yeah. Conceptually, I think what is happening today is, when it comes to these data-driven technologies, and AI at the end of the day is data-driven technology, and healthcare is data-driven science. Yeah. When it comes to these technologies, I think we need to start to be clear a little bit about what are we talking about. Yeah? We are putting everything under the umbrella of AI now, but some of the aspects we discussed, they are actually classical algorithms. It's just an automation of something with a very first principles algorithm doing something. Then there is the aspect of, I would say, classical AI kind of learning systems that can learn to do something very well, and we can implement them accordingly. And the third thing, and I think that's where the big confusion comes up, is this aspect of generative AI. An AI which can generate something new, be it good or bad, be it valuable or not, but it can, and it can interact, and it can influence, therefore, where we are going or where somebody or something is going. Yeah? And in that context, having said so, I think we should think a little bit about what are we talking about at the end of the day. You mentioned this pharma, drug discovery, whatever, algorithms and so on, AI and so on, is applied in drug discovery since 20 years and more. Yeah. And now, since a couple of months, everybody thinks these will solve all the big problems of drug discovery. I'm not so sure. Yeah. Now, my question is this new generative aspect. How will this play into these fields? Yeah, and that's the big questions, probably. Yeah. So, having said so, I think we can come to the conclusion: AI in healthcare is a hyped topic. It's a current topic. People are talking about it. We are obviously talking about it. People doing it, it's a different thing. Let's keep some thoughts about how these different aspects of AI or data-driven technologies play a role in other areas of healthcare or life science for the next time. Thanks for listening, and hope to see you again.
Absolutely.